I welcome you this afternoon. This is the third preaching in the series called Prayer and Fasting Series. Let us pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, our Father who art in heaven, we want to glorify your holy, holy, holy name. We thank you for the day, for the time, this opportunity that we have to be before your throne with your word before us. We are asking you to help us to uncover this truth and live by it. Please forgive us our trespasses. In Christ we pray. Amen. We'll read together Genesis 18 verse 1 to 33. But I'll read only verses 1 and 2, then 10, then 22 and 23. Genesis 18, 1 and 2. The Lord appeared to Abram near the great tree of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abram looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bow low to the ground. Verse 10. Then the Lord said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. That is verse 10. Then verse 22. The men turned away and went towards Sodom, but Abram remained standing before the Lord. Then Abram approached him and said, will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Genesis 18 is all about God, who is Yahweh, who is faithful to his promises to save his people who believe in him, his promises to punish evil, those who disobey. Now, Abraham is having a concern, a plea, a prayer. In verse 23, the question which Abraham had is, will you destroy the righteous with the wicked in your punishment? So behind this concern, there are 3 lessons that we can learn from this plea, this prayer, this concern. First, Abraham understood, accepted, and reflected on God's plan to save him and his people. God's plan to make things right. He accepted that plan. It is a foundation. It is a basis. It is a root. It is a motive. It is a resource. It is a standard and priority for him to walk with the Lord. Mind you, in Genesis 15, verse 4, 5, and 6, he was crying for the promised seed, the promised son. He was crying for this promised nation. How will this promised nation be if you don't have a son? And now it is clear when God talked with him in Genesis 15, verse 4 and 5, we see him believing God. And that's why he was declared righteous. Genesis 15, verse 6. And now, God fulfilled that promise. He is saying in Genesis 18, verse 10, that surely I will return about this time next year, and Sarah, against all odds, age-wise, you will have a son from Sarah, from you. So he walked with God. He believed God. His view of life changed because of that promise. His view of the world, of the newspaper of the world, Sodom and Gomorrah, also changed. It brings us to the second point, that Abraham's concern in Genesis 18, verse 23, when God is about to fulfill his punishment of Sodom and Gomorrah, his punishment of evil, the concern is, the prayer is, the plea is, what about the righteous who will be found in Sodom and Gomorrah? You can see his plea, his prayer, his concern. In verse 23, he will say, what if there are 50 righteous in Sodom and Gomorrah? In verse 26, God said, I'll spare the city. I'll save the city. Verse 27 and 28, what if there are 45? In verse 30, what if there are 30? In verse 31, what if there are 20 righteous people? In verse 32, what if there are 10 righteous people? In all cases, in verse 26, 28, 30, 31, 32, God assured him that if there are 50, 45, 30, 20, 10 righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah, I'll spare the city. Remember, back in his mind, he was thinking about Lot, his brother's son. Lot and his family, wife and 2 daughters. You will see even Pedro talking about Lot in Sodom and Gomorrah in 2 Peter chapter 6, chapter 2, verse 6 to 9. That he was there. He was in Sodom and Gomorrah. He was distressed. That word, distressed, and the fact that he was righteous should be understood. He was distressed of sin. He hated sin. In other words, he was sober. He surrendered himself. He submitted to God's plan of salvation. He understood that we are sinful. He hated sin. And according to Paul's letter to Corinthians, 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 8 and 9, the right type of sorrow, distress, which God love, is when you repent of your sin. Your sorrow should lead you to repentance. That is 2 Corinthians 7, 8, and 9. That is what was happening in the heart of Lot. He hated sin. He was sober. He surrendered himself. He submitted to God. And hence, God declared him righteous. He was righteous as he understood God's plan, walking with God in Sodom. So Abraham's prayer was having that in the mind. Yes, there were 4 people in Sodom and Gomorrah, and that was his plea. That was his prayer. What about the righteous in Sodom? This reminds us of the priestly prayer of Jesus. John 17, verse 15. My prayer is not that you take them out of the world, but that you protect them from the evil one. That is very, very important to understand. That our prayer in our cities, in our towns, in our villages, where we live, should be that God, spare our world, our cities, our towns, our villages, our relatives, our friends. But it leads us to the third aspect. It's not only that God is faithful to his promises to save his nation. It's not only that God is faithful to bring punishment, but the issue here also is that we should be found doing something as our thanksgiving. Yes, Abraham did it by prayer. Lot did it by hating sin. But it should be translated. It should be understood also from Romans 10. Romans 10, verse 10, which says, for it is with your heart that you believe and are justified. And it is with your mouth that you confess and are saved. It's not only the matter of heart that we believe and justified, but that we should confess with our mouth indeed to be saved. It's not either or. And when we go on, Romans 10, verse 13, for everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Now, the biggest question is, verse 14, Romans 10, verse 14. How then can they call on the one they have not believed in? People who are near you, who are relatives, who are friends, who live in the same vicinity, in the same city, in the same town, how will they call upon the Lord, the one whom they do not believe in? And how can they believe in the one whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? It should be clear to us, even when Matthew 24, verse 11 to 14, and Timothy, 2 Timothy 3, verse 13, indicating that false teachers, false prophets, evil people will increase as the day approaches. They will deceive many. Sin will increase. It is not an excuse, but it should be a motive why we should preach, witness, based on the promise of God that his Son, Jesus Christ, who came, died, resurrected, will come again to save the righteous, to save all those who believe in his plan. They will be saved. They will be his. All who believe will belong, and therefore they are expected to behave, to witness, to testify whom they believe. So may God be with you, so that in our prayer we do so.